Welcome to another edition of How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs. Hope you are having a fantastic, bright, shiny day and hope you are giving yourself lots of love. Today, we have a special guest from Pennsylvania. His name is Ryan Scialabba. Ryan, how are you today, my friend?
Good, Brad. Thanks for having me on.
Cool, cool. So you've got quite the story. We're going to dive into some really deep stuff today. We're going to talk about drinking. We're going to talk about flipping houses. We're going to talk about childhood trauma. So let's just start by give us a little bit of your story. I know you started out as an entrepreneur at a very young age and then hit some rockiness up and down. And as we were talking offline, you were saying you struggled the last couple of weeks. So let's just have a freaking conversation between
Yeah,
two cool guys.
yeah, for sure. No, I told you offline. I've been battling with the flu for the last week or so. So a combination of flu and sleep deprivation will cause a man to do things that he wouldn't normally do. But I'm here for I'm here for that conversation. So quick background on me. Uh, got my real estate license in fresh out of high school. So I was 19 years old. I'm 31 now, so a little bit over 10 years in the kind of entrepreneur space. Um, I got my real estate license because I thought that was the way that you got into real estate. I thought everybody had a real estate license. My only real background on it was the flipping TV shows. I grew up on A&E's Flip This House, the HGTV shows, and my dad, he worked for U.S. Airways, a local airline. At the time, they were a national airline carrier.
Yep.
And in 2004 and in late 2005, so over a span of about 18 months, the company went through two bankruptcies. So at 10 years old, I kind of went from the perfect everyday, perfect average middle class family and lifestyle to that being turned upside down pretty quickly, because in that second bankruptcy, they had lost their pensions, they had lost their 401ks due to the stock crash. Their pay was cut in half, and really a lot of the freedoms that had come with some of the previous workplace had gone away too. So basically 20 some years of work for my dad, I just got thrown away practically overnight, while the CEOs and C-suite employees had made out like bandits for, restructuring the companies. So the conversation in the house changed, a lot around 10 years old. Not only did my dad and I start having conversations over time about, taking control, building your own skill sets and working for yourself and creating your own money. But the conversation around money changed as well because my mom had to go back to work, and now money was a consistent conversation, whereas before it really wasn't, because we were comfortable.
Mm.
And so a lot more arguments were happening. There was a lot more stress in the house. There was a lot less love. And ultimately that led to my parents' divorce. So my junior year of high school, and my sister's 4 years younger than me. So she was in like seventh grade. And so, going through the split household, finishing out high school, kind of having those games, those back and forth games, like we would use our parents. There's no way around it. Mom was cool, dad was strict, right? But then dad had to work, and dad was also having like a midlife crisis. So he was out and about. And so then the home was wide open. So I chose to stay with my dad, and my sister went with my mom.
Wow.
Anytime my dad would tick me off, I'd go run to mom, and mom was there to, have a drink with. Anytime my mom was being ridiculous, so I'd go back over to dad's because no one was there. And, so kind of really had a lot of independence those last couple of years, for better or for worse. I was working multiple jobs, and our relationship had my dad and I's relationship had suffered a lot from that. Go off to college.
So Ryan, can we pause there, man? You just said so many gold nuggets here that I want to break down. Your dad and relationship struggle because of what? 'Cause you said because
Absence.
that, yeah.
I would say absence.
So
Um,
you guys are making good money. You're living this life. His financial world gets turned upside down. Um, Fighting, less love. Uh, I played that game too. I actually ended up moving out of my mom's house because my dad essentially bought me off. He literally was like, "I'll buy you a car. I'll buy you a waterbed. I'll repair your room. I'll redo your room." And I'm 16 years old. I'm like, okay. And
yeah.
it was a mistake. Look, I don't really have regrets about anything because I was just doing. I think I was following the love. He showed me his love through money. So anyway, I played that game, but all of that stuff that happened to you, did you go from like, did you go from not having to worry about money to worrying about money?
Well, I didn't personally, right? But it became more of like a all hands on deck type approach. Where when I was 16, it was like, hey man, if you want a car, like you got to go get a job. If you want to go to college, well, you better get a scholarship. So in hindsight, there's a lot of great things in that because it forces a lot of
Sure.
independence on you, and it's that like generation of you got to figure it out. And so like because I know a lot of my age, my generation of people didn't have that. When I went off to college, it was it was odd just to see how like coddled people were. And so I'd kind of always felt like I'd stood out in that way based on that. And I call it to this day still lessons in absence of like, well, I had to figure it out. So I mean, I worked multiple jobs. I was a cook at a local restaurant. I had like bar backed, waited. Worked at Sears back
I
then
worked at
and
Sears
sold.
too. I
Yeah,
sold vacuum cleaners.
that's why I sold tractors and during the summer and electronics during the winter. So I got to learn all of these cool things in just like a short period of time because my dad was like, if you want to figure it out, like I have to go figure out things myself too.
So,
Um,
Ryan, what I've learned through my life and through working with lots of clients is that when there's a lot of stress in the house and there's financial problems and there's divorce and there's fighting, the kid oftentimes, more often than not, will place that burden on themselves in an unconscious way and say, these bad things are happening because I did something wrong. And the reason that we as children do that is it's a control thing, because if we look and we say it's just our parents and it's their problem, we're screwed. But if we can say it's our fault and all we have to do is become a little better, become good, then maybe my parents will stop fighting. Maybe they won't get divorced. Maybe the money problems will go away. So that was a lot for you. And some people would look at it and be like, that's just every other family. Like, what's the big deal? But no, that is the definition of trauma. Like that, there was a lot of stress going on.
yeah, yeah, and I don't think you don't really feel it back then as a kid. And still too, it's not like a conscious thing today, but the thing that I've learned, and really even in the last 24 hours have been thinking about leading up to having this conversation of whether or not I wanted to show up today was I I haven't really ever had a good example. And my wife has never really had a good example either of what, loving, compassionate, empathetic marriage looks like, or what that type of relationship looks like with your kids. And that type of stuff, I would say it's more now, like it's conscious now, but I'd say it more affects me more subconsciously, or I don't even know or understand it's affecting me until sometimes it's too late, right? And then like you've done some damage. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So most people, the behaviors that they're doing on a daily basis are caused by their subconscious beliefs that were formed. You went through some really tough shit. You and I have spent 15 minutes talking on a previous phone call. We don't know each other that well, but I would say, given what you just told me, there could be a history of rocky relationships, problem with drinking, problem with I'm not saying this is you. I'm just saying if someone went through this, eating, drinking, rocky relationships, business going up and down, like uh, Yeah, there could be a lot of chaos because you grew up in chaos and your subconscious mind says, I my only job is to keep you alive. I don't care if you're happy or sad. I want to recreate, and you just lived through that chaos. So we're just going to recreate some more of that. And once you can figure out what those limiting beliefs are, everything changes.
Hmm.
So tell
Yeah,
me
and
more.
what's the
Go
okay?
ahead. Go ahead. No, you go
I was
ahead.
gonna say what's so interesting about all of those things that you just mentioned is like what it could look like if you looked at our business. Like if you looked at my business, our companies, you would you wouldn't have any idea, because it's like the exact opposite of chaos, right? It's system, it's process, it's freedom, it's predictability, removal of variables. And I've tried to really set my life up in response to all of this like that,
Wow.
having consistent routines, having consistent discipline. And when I fall off of that, I now, over the last few years, have become more aware that that is those natural tendencies that come up, that I have to
Mm,
fight so hard, extra hard, to put these boundaries in place, or to make sure that I go to the gym or read the book, or don't drink too much, or have those clarity days, or don't get too overwhelmed. It's all in response to these things, is my guess, that have happened, throughout
one
childhood.
100%, and none of it's your fault. Once you have awareness, then it becomes more of your responsibility. But I didn't find out till age 47 that these things were creating havoc in my life. So I want to ask you about your sister, and then I want to ask you about the last 24 hours, and then we're going to go back to college and fill in from college upward. So what is your sister's life, if you okay talking about it, like
Mhm.
does she have struggles from, because she came from the same childhood, does she have struggles, does she have relationship problems or other problems in her life?
Yeah, very much, like, I don't know if I would be called attachment or abandonment. I may be getting it, like, backwards, but every time something gets going good, like, she's not good enough for it.
Self
And
sabotage, is it?
yeah, and I know that comes a lot from my mom. And so ultimately, another part of the story going back into college is that I 6 months after starting a real estate business together, with my dad and I, he was killed in a motorcycle accident.
Wow.
And the thing about my sister is, that's really hard, is one of their last conversations was an argument.
Oh boy.
And so I feel for her in so many ways. Whereas, like, I had, over that 6 months where my dad and I had started the business, like, we got to repair our relationship, because now we were working toward a common thing
Right.
against something else, right? They didn't get that. And so, I feel like I had it on my shoulders from 16 to grow up and be independent and become a logical problem solver, and be able, I can operate in any environment. Like, from the business side of things, or just getting things done, like, I can operate no matter what's going on. And I think those are all positive traits that come from all of this. But, like, negatively, empathy, compassion, like, things like that, they lack, right? Self-love, no. That it's a battle and a struggle.
So
I've
so
over
Ry so Ryan, that's you just protecting yourself from the pain that you had to go through as a child. You lack self-love because you likely don't feel enough, because it's you saying, "I'm not, this bad shit's happening to me. It's the same thing I did because I must be bad, and therefore if I can just be good, my dad or my mom will love me the way that I want," right? How how old was your sister when he passed away?
She would have been 16.
Oh,
So,
wow.
still had to finish school. Yeah, still had to finish school. She ended up having her daughter, I believe when she was 20, Naomi. She's our beautiful little niece. Um, rocky, like, what was a good relationship became rocky. And yeah, she has a hard time like sticking with a job, or has a hard time sticking with a relationship. And I have a hard time, like we have a hard time communicating. We've gotten better over the years, but a big struggle for our relationship for many years was she would be like, "Well, you're not my dad," because she had moved in with me for a period of time. I hurt my our relationship with our mother is not good. So my sister had moved in with me for a while, and I'd be like, "Hey, like she she wanted me to be big bro who wanted to party." And just kind of let her do whatever. And I was like, no, if you're living under my roof, like I want the house clean, and and your friends aren't going to come over and smoke weed in my basement. Like, you need to get a
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
And and she's like, don't, you're not my dad. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be. I'm just trying to tell you what you can and can't do under my house. And I'm like, wait, I guess you're right. But that was a long struggle in our relationship for, yeah, for a lot of years, to where now it's over the last few years it's gotten better, to like where she'll call and be like, hey, like, what do you think about this? And
Oh, that's
you know
great.
and stuff, and we share more, but it's still a weird relationship, um for both of us.
Yeah, so I often ask, and I kind of know the answer 98% of the time when someone comes to me to do work and they tell me about their childhood and I ask them about their siblings. 9 times out of 10, it's just like, oh yeah, Johnny's really got some struggles, and April, she drinks all the time, and the other one is 100 pounds overweight. Like, you can't escape that. There's very few people that can escape this stuff unless they actually do the exploration and do the
Hmm.
work. So let's go back
Yeah.
to the and look, it's not your sister's fault. She's doing the best she
No,
can. I
and
mean,
she's doing great. Like all things considered, like we're here, right? We're talking about, talking raw about the truth, and
yeah,
but like she's a great mom. She has a house. Like you know, Naomi's a happy, healthy little girl, like about to
that's
go to
awesome.
school. So it's yeah, like she's really good, but there's definitely easily identifiable things, that you can tie back, uh, to that.
S- So let's talk about a couple minutes before we got on. You talked about how you did some stuff in the last whatever 2 3 days that you weren't so proud of. Can you share that with me?
Yeah. So our son, he's 2.5. He has been a wild, independent little boy since the minute he came out. But it's the sleep struggles is just been it's sleep has been a battle for 2.5 years. Um, and so for about the last month, we've been passing colds around the house as he started going to school, and he just stopped sleeping again. And I'm just over it. I can't even, I don't know a cleaner way to say it. Like, I just want my kid to sleep. Like, and there's just a lot of weight, right? There's running companies. We're in the middle of remodeling our new home. It's like a $200,000 renovation, trying to get down to the wire, and then on top of that, your kid's not sleeping, and he's in a defiant toddler stage. And my wife and I aren't like communicating all that well about it, because we literally don't know what to do. And I just, like, I get so angry at 2 in the morning, and last night I yelled, uh, and I scared my wife and probably scared my boy. And I went downstairs and I felt absolutely terrible about it. I feel terrible about it all day. Um, apologize to him and stuff like that. But yeah, I just find that there are moments like that on more than a consistent basis when it comes to the sleep, and just a defiant, uh, independent little boy, that are causing me, well, that's not fair, but causing me to not be the person that I want to be and proud to be. And so yeah, that's something I've been struggling with. I am struggling with, and we have another one on the way. So
Wow.
A lot of these conversations is like, how the hell are we gonna, if we can't do this with one, like how are we gonna do this with two? And I know we'll find a way, but yeah, it's a feeling of feeling alone. Like your kid is, is unique, right, in their own way. But like, yeah, a lot of times, like I literally feel like I have no one to talk to about like a kid that literally for 2.5 years like just won't sleep. Um, and what that all the effects that that has on you while you're trying to, you know, ru- run stuff day in and day out and still carry that weight of everything. So it's
Yeah, man, I feel for you. I've had young kids. I had my not anymore. My son's now 21, getting ready to turn 22, and for 8 months he didn't sleep. My daughter, who's now 16, she started sleeping through the night at 3 weeks old. So I know both sides of it, and I think about 1% or probably less of the world's population is enlightened. However you want to like define enlightened, like in a place that you and I aren't in, like just ultra like happy and nothing bothers them. And I believe that if you took those people, the enlightened crowd, and you sleep deprived them, they would not be enlightened. They would scream, they would cry, they would be mean to people. So sleep, diet, and exercise are like the basis of what you need for good mental health. So you can have perfect mental health, but if you're deprived from sleep, man, it becomes really, really tough. So I want to ask about your son because you used the word defiant a couple of times. So we've got sleep as one issue, and then we've got like, does he have defiant behavioral problems, or is it just the sleep?
it's we've been in the fog for like a month, so it's just like you don't know. It's like he went through one of those mental leaps like a month ago and a sleep regression and then gets the ear infection all in one. So you don't know. But yeah, like truthfully, it's I don't know if it's I don't know if it's regular toddler stuff or not. I don't. I don't know if, if every toddler will literally just doesn't want to get dressed, right? Or him and mom are just battling the majority of the time. I don't know if that's just another stage that they go through, but it seems like every time I've ever said anything to somebody about it or like been open about the struggles that we've been having, it's just like very quickly or easily dismissed as like, oh yeah, well, there's another stage. I'm like, well, how many stages of misery are there?
Well, let me tell you what I've studied under a guy named Dr. Gabor Mate. He's pretty famous. He's been a physician for 40 something years, and he's been a medical physician, but he's also done a lot on the mental side. And he says that kids only misbehave for one reason and one reason only, and that's because they lack connection with a parent. You mentioned that you lack self love, which typically means you're going to marry someone who lacks self love. When you lack self love, you weren't born with lack of self love. You lack self love because you don't feel enough based on the shit that happened to you. And a lot of shit happened to you, Ryan. So that's your way of protecting yourself. You basically disconnect from who you are because there's so much pain. So you lose connection with yourself. If you lose connection with yourself, it's really hard to have connection with a child. So this is me on a 15-minute conversation giving you my best knowledge. And I'm not saying I'm right, but I do know that if you lack self love, because I lack self love, I was a single dad for 12 years. I did everything for my child, yet my lack of self love drove me to drive him to a point where he had anxiety. My daughter had anxiety. Because if you don't feel enough, how can you ever teach your kid how to feel enough, right? So they're going to
Mhm.
push back. They're going to try to get attention. So if you decide to go on the journey of doing the work, it's going to change a lot in your life. I feel like the greatest thing you can ever give a child is to break the multi-generational curse. Like your mom and dad did the best they could with you, Ryan, based on how they were raised and how their parents were raised. And what we do inadvertently is we just keep pushing this down. So how do you break this curse? You teach your child and soon to be children how to love themselves unconditionally. How can you teach a child how to love themselves unconditionally if you don't? You can, it's impossible. So it's only been in the last 3 years where my kids' behavior and anxiety has started to dissipate and go away because I started finding self love and I stopped pushing them and I got better connected with them.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's well, I definitely would love to learn more about that. Because it's like I don't know if it's a weird. Almost want to say sometimes it does feel like you can like it can be conditional, like conditional love. Like, hey, if all is good, man, I love you to the moon and back. But when all is bad, like, come on, you gotta give us a break. And that, yeah, and that doesn't feel good, you know. But yeah, it's like, yeah, it's. And I said this, I said this to my wife like right from the beginning. It's like, I think connecting connecting with kids is really hard, like, to begin with, and I feel like I'm conscious and aware of that, and like I'll jump in that puddle, right? Or we'll play, or I'm present. I make every effort, to not be at the office and to be home and to put the phone down and all of those things. But yeah, and go on these hikes and be there and stuff. And but then it's like, well, what else could what else could you be doing, right? What else could I be doing to to make that relationship better? And I do believe that, as I've thought about this over the course of today, because my wife and I haven't really spoken today. I've been thinking a lot, and I do worry that, like, he's anxious about the night, right? And he's always slept great with us. If he won't sleep and I just grab him and we go sleep on the couch, kid passes out, And it's just always been one of those things where it's like, well, I don't want, I want sleep. I don't want kids in the bed. But now, like, I'm at the point where it's like, do we just give in and he just sleeps with us? Um, like, what? Because so we can get some sleep, because these 1, 3, 5 a.m. battles are just, it's just not worth it
Is
anymore.
is he is he wanting to come into your room? Is that the issue?
He's just waking up. He just wakes up on a consistent basis, and then when he does wake up, it's a book, it's milk, it's this whole toddler routine, right? Every time he wakes up,
Yeah.
and and then when it continues to grow, and you walk out because you hold the boundary, then the screaming happens, and now both parents are awake, and emotions get high, and then
Yeah.
you know, and then
So
it just spirals.
you said I don't know what else I could do, and I'm going to tell you the best thing that you and your wife could ever do is heal the pain from your past and learn to love yourself because you're lovable and you're enough, and turn around those falsities from childhood that you're not enough. That's the single best thing you can do for your child. Outside of that, you may want to say, hey, do you want to do a sleepover night? We're going to test this for 1 or 2 nights. You get to put a sleeping bag in mom and dad's room, but there's a condition. You got to sleep through the night. So if you wake up in the middle of the night, you just got to go back to sleep. It worth a try. Completely up to you and your wife,
Yeah.
but maybe worth a try. I know that when my daughter and son used to come into my room and ask to sleep because they had anxiety, I wouldn't always let them. And I thought at the time I was doing the best I could, that if I allowed them to sleep in my room all the time, that's something like they would develop poorly, right? Now I know, after thousands of hours of research and reading on trauma and everything, is that you need to give the kid what they want. And you don't need to spank them. You don't need to put them in timeout, because that just further disconnects them. If I could go back, as inconvenient as it was, I've got this huge bedroom with a couch actually in it. I would have, anytime my son or daughter came to me and said, Dad, can I sleep in your room? I'd have been like, because I'm scared. I'd have been like, sure, it's okay. Knowing that I did more damage to them sending them back to their room, because
Yeah.
I knew it was safe. But to them, it was like me jumping in a shark infested waters. That they had no idea.
And that's
So
that's that's where I'm at about it. That's about where I am, is that he's been this way since he was born. And it's like, are we just fighting the way that he is? Like, even, a couple weeks out when he wasn't sleeping, he'd sleep on dad's chest. Um and he still, says and does those things a lot. Like he just says, I want to lay my head on daddy's chest, and he'll sleep great like that. So it's just like we're kind of like fighting giving into that, but at the same time, is that the one thing that is legitimately causing 99% of our problems?
Yeah.
Potentially so. Yeah, I know. I don't know how much time we have
We've
today,
got a
but
wrap now. So can you tell people if they want to reach out to you? I know you've got an amazing book. Where can people find your book, and where can people find you?
sure. You can find me at ryanshalaba.com. Facebook, Instagram, call me Shivy. Wrote a book called The Perfect Average Day, which was basically how to build more lifestyle into your business. I know we didn't. I'd kind of warned Brad before we got on this that like, hey man, I'm in it today, so let's have a real vulnerable, raw conversation. And I hope people can kind of relate to maybe some more truth and more of our conversation than just talking about the X's and O's of business or things like that. But if I do take 30 seconds to kind of plug that, not even really plug it, but just like as far as a real estate business and stuff goes, like we built a great company, a great operation and team. And a lot of our time, like we travel a lot, we're able to spend time, with the family and have a lot of freedom in that real estate business, which you're aware of you know how much that can be at times. And so it's been good. And ultimately I wrote a book about the highs and lows and some of the things that I've done to put in place along with my business partner to have more freedom and remove a lot of the variables from that business. And yeah, so hope it helps.
Appreciate it, Ryan. Yeah, absolutely.
Front and
Well,
center.
maybe I'll get you back on here and we'll talk more because I really enjoyed this conversation. I enjoyed you being vulnerable. If you guys are thinking to yourself, I wonder, do I have some of these childhood issues? Do yourself and your family and your kids a favor. Go to bradchandler.com/quiz and spend 3 minutes or 2 minutes and 45 seconds answering 12 questions. And it's gonna tell you a lot about, what could be driving your behavior. Ryan, I appreciate a whole lot. Thank you for being vulnerable. If you
Yeah,
like the
thank you for
show,
having me.
please rate, review it. Anything you can do to get this word out. I'm on a mission to help 1 million people free themselves from childhood programming and live a life that they deserve with abundant relationships. So do that for me. And until next time, love heals all.